in the words of Dr. Katherine Johnson, and I quote, "You are providing a platform for so many to share their story, and together we are rewriting history in a way that allows everyone to see their place."
For more than 3 decades, the Computer History Museum has reserved one honor for a distinguished circle of individuals who have advanced the field of computing.
So I figured that if I could start on the ground floor with other people, then I'd have a chance to get ahead.
And that was what led me to write the first compiler back in 1952.
And it was set up as a crusade rather than to make money.
The CHM Fellow Awards recognize technology pioneers, legends, and unsung heroes who have illuminated our world and propelled humanity forward.
The semiconductor industry has made bigger changes in a few decades than printing has over a few centuries.
When these things actually start to connect, you get the wow effect.
Democracy, freedom, prosperity, they all stem from technological innovation.
We've got to make a society that will last, that is sustainable as a society.
That's one of the reasons I developed my computer and gave it away. I wanted to help that revolution go forward.
If every one of us does our job well, it'll all go very interesting.
When the ideas start, they are fragile and they're new. And most people don't understand them. And the things that are fragile need to be protected.
They are the dreamers who imagine beyond what is, the disruptors who challenge convention, the builders who transform our world. They are the history makers who inspire us all to keep exploring and creating new ways to shape a better future for everyone.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's special program honoring the 2024 Fellow Award honorees. Thank you for joining us. As I said earlier, my name is Dan Lewin. I'm the president and CEO of CHM. Here at CHM, we have an ambitious vision for a human-centered digital world where everyone is served by technology. We're uniquely positioned to distill key lessons of the past and help guide people from all walks of life to shape a better future today. Since our last Fellow Awards, we've been advancing our work to build that future. And we've offered events on today's tech issues, such as Reid Hoffman here discussing from his new book, insights from his new book that he co-wrote with ChatGPT. We examined data privacy, India's civic tech revolution. 1.4 billion people have a digital identity in India right now. They're bankable. It's a scalable architecture. It's going to permeate the world. We've explored journalism and polarization and the impact that technology has had on those issues. We've celebrated the technology history with a packed house for the insanely great event celebrating the 40th anniversary of the iconic Apple Macintosh with insider stories from key members of the original team. Some of them are here. And author Andrew McAfee shared how the geek way has created an enormously successful business culture in Silicon Valley. And we're expanding our audience with new initiatives. One of those is the first of its kind museum exhibit that we call Cat Chats. Chatbots Decoded. I have a cat. Exploring AI, which you'll get a special opportunity to preview later tonight, and it opens on Wednesday this week to the public. We have a series of Tech Fest events where we bring in families to CHM for all-day activities, demonstrations, and various kinds of shows. And we continue to engage new audiences with our digital content in short-form videos, and we're continuing to build our capacity to elevate how we measure the impact on our audiences with a grant that we received from the Institute for Museum and Library Sciences. We're very interested on the broader implications of the digital citizens of the world and how we can affect that, because life doesn't exist without computing, as we all know. These achievements and many more will help us fulfill our mission, which I just stated, is to decode technology, the computing past, where we get agency because we have the collection, the digital present, which is a moving target with life as we know it, and the future impact on humanity. And tonight is one of the most important ways that we do that, by honoring 5 amazing people and the incredible impact that they have made. Because people are at the heart of the story of technology and of our world, and this human impact is the essence of the CHM Fellow Awards. Before we begin the ceremony, I want to acknowledge the generous sponsors who made this event possible. At the headline sponsor level, we'd like to thank Oracle Corporation. Please join me. We have fellow sponsors from Accenture and NVIDIA. So again, thank you. We have a series of table sponsors tonight as well. TSMC is here tonight and has joined. And a number of trustees, Eileen Fagan, who's on the executive committee, is a table sponsor. Gardner Hendry, also a trustee, is a table sponsor. And Stephen S. and Paula K. Smith. Steve is the chair of the museum, also a table sponsor. Thank you. It's really important, obviously, for a program like this to have benefactors, and we couldn't do it without your help. And before we begin to honor the achievements of the 2024 fellows, I'd like to introduce Andy Mendelson, who's the Executive Vice President of Database and Server Technology Development at Oracle. And he'll provide some personal observations that I think will be interesting for framing some of the events tonight. He's been at Oracle for over 40 years. And he started as a coder, and he's currently in a senior vice presidential role. He's made enormous impact in the database industry over the years. And he's currently responsible for the autonomous database and the new Oracle database 23AI. And he's seen a lot of changes. And many of them have been brought about by the honorees that we're going to honor tonight. And so he'll give a little reflection on that. He's worked on and integrated some of these technologies into the Oracle systems over the years. So Andy, would you join me on stage? Thank you.
Wow. I'm really honored to be able to talk for a couple minutes here. And as you heard, I've been at Oracle about 40 years now. That means I started in 1984. That was before the internet. And so the world has changed a lot, and we're very proud of the fact that if you go down to that museum downstairs and look at all these computers that have come out over the last 40 years, we were able to sort of get our software to evolve and adapt and work on all these systems for many, many years. It's a real interesting story unto itself that someday, hopefully we can tell at an event like this too. What I thought I'd do today is just tell a couple stories where I could try to relate how, the innovations of the fellows, affected us at Oracle over the years. And I'll just go through the three categories of fellows, like one by one. So we'll start off with the internet. Elizabeth Jake Feinler. She was one of the pioneers of the internet. We all sort of understand the internet today really well. We're all using it every day in our daily lives. But she started off in the early days of the internet, which back then was called the ARPANET. It was a project that the U.S. government funded, and she was one of the pioneers in that project. Now, in the world, back in '84 when I started Oracle, if you think about what was networking like back then, well, there was no networking. We had phone lines. And so, when I joined Oracle, the first day of work, they gave me a DEC VT100 terminal and a 1200 baud modem and say, hey, you can work at home. And it's like, what the heck is this? I had worked at HP and some other places. We never worked at home, ever. Not on nights, not on weekends. So at Oracle, one things they sort of had figured out is like if you give developers a way to work all the time, developers will work all the time. So, so all these questions, today, this is one of the big controversies. Oh, should we make people go into the office and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, we had figured it out a long time ago that you should just work in the office by day, work at home by night, and on the weekends too, kind of thing. So we figured that out. It's not a big, big question. So anyway, that's sort of, and the other thing to say about the internet, if you guys remember back in the internet boom era, this was like the late 90s, it's just sort of like the current era is with AI today. All these dot-coms were starting up, Webvan, Amazon, AWS, all these guys, the thing we loved is they all decided, oh yeah, we all need an Oracle database to run our e-commerce site. So that was the real big heyday of Oracle. So those were great days. And so the internet really changed everything. And then I'll just go to the next fellow group from Atari. These guys started the whole concept of computing games, video games. Allan Alcorn, Nolan Bushnell, and Stephen Meyer. So I didn't really have a good way of relating that to Oracle, except for the fact, of course, us developers, we played games. We played Pong. I did that. And the other story I want to mention is, Nolan founded a company called Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater. It still exists today. Yeah. And, that was a really hot tech company, I think in the 70s sometime. And that was one of my first tech investments as a kid, And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I invested in that. And as you may know the story there, it was a pretty typical story, really hot company, and then, not so hot in a few years. So I learned the risks of investing in hot tech companies back then. And then I'll just close with our last fellow here, Jensen Huang for NVIDIA. NVIDIA, everybody, of course, knows about NVIDIA now. So Oracle, it turns out, and NVIDIA are really strong partners in cloud computing. It's sort of a fortunate happenstance for both of us. And we have figured out, we sort of were the first guys to decode how to take hundreds of thousands of Jensen's GPUs and network them together in a giant cluster. We call it a Zeta cluster. We have like 131,000 we're up to GPUs now. And these things take up entire data centers. And we have these giant AI companies, buy these entire data centers of GPUs on our cloud. So this has been a great business for us, great partnership for us with NVIDIA. And of course, at the beginning of the days, NVIDIA actually started out, was related to the gaming industry. We were talking about Atari. They were trying to do high-performance 3D graphics for games. And so, they did a great job, of course, pivoting from their original business and figuring out they could be this great infrastructure under AI. In the database space, we've been looking for a long time to see if we could figure out how to use GPUs to make databases run faster. And we just did a demo a few months ago where we're showing how we can use GPUs to make creation of indexes that we call these AI vector indexes, which I'm not going to explain what that means, but leave it to be said, it is a way to let databases do very interesting kinds of similarity search, like find all the people that look like this person kind of thing in the database. So we're starting to partner with Jensen's team around GPUs to make our AI vector search run faster. So anyway, that's sort of my story here. Congratulations to all the fellows, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of them talk about their innovations over the years. Thank you.
All right, first thing I'm going to do is apologize to Andy Cunningham and Rand Siegfried. Andy's a two-time trustee. She helped start the museum long, long ago and joined the board some time ago. So again, Andy and Rand, thank you. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce the MC for the evening. She is currently the Chief Product Officer at Character AI and previously was the Senior Director of Product Management at Google. We've also been proud to have her on the CHM Board of Trustees since 2021. So please join me in welcoming Erin Teague to the stage. Great.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It is truly an honor to be here today and share in these lifetime achievements with the world. As a lover of history and technology, I am so proud to represent CHM and the Fellow Awards. This program tonight combines education, research, and media to reflect the seminal work of each fellow and also preserves their stories for future generations. You might be wondering, how do we select these fellows? Fellow nominations are open to the public and reflect a diverse range of viewpoints. Final selection is made by a panel comprised of historians, researchers, industry leaders, CHM trustees and staff, as well as past honorees. I'd like to thank each of them this evening. Thank you. We'd also like to recognize fellows who are with us tonight, online as well as in person. All CHM fellows here, would you please stand? Join me in giving them a round of applause. Don't be shy. All right, now let's focus on our remarkable 2024 Fellow Award honorees and how they've changed the world and how they will continue to shape the future of the human experience. Even if someone doesn't know the difference between a GPU and R2-D2, they've no doubt been dazzled by real-time 3D graphics or the processing power behind much of the AI revolution that is poised to change the way that we work. Even if millions of people don't understand the complexities of network protocols, they've all typed .com into their browser and felt connected with the rest of the world. And even if you're not an avid gamer, you've probably played a round of Pong and can appreciate how gaming is driving some of the most cutting-edge technology while creating new forms of human expression and connection. These 5 honorees' work has had an even broader impact across the many facets of our daily lives. Our 2024 honorees are Allan Alcorn, Nolan Bushnell, and Stephen Mayer, for their pioneering role in the development of the video game and personal computing industries. Elizabeth Jake Feinler for inspiring and creative leadership of the network information centers that help shape today's internet. And Jensen Huang for visionary leadership in the advancement of devices and systems for computer graphics and accelerated computing, and of course, artificial intelligence. So tonight, I have the distinct honor of celebrating 3 trailblazers whose collaboration shaped the foundation of modern gaming and revolutionized the entertainment industry. Allan Alcorn, Nolan Bushnell, and Stephen Mayer. In 1970, Nolan Bushnell co-founded Syzygy, which would go on to become Atari, a name that would soon become synonymous with arcade and home video game innovation. His visionary leadership and relentless pursuit of interactive entertainment set Atari on a course to define an era. But no revolutionary idea succeeds without brilliant execution. Enter Allan Alcorn, the creator of Pong. That game launched the video game industry into the mainstream. In addition to overseeing many other successful games for Atari, he also shaped the company's culture of collaboration and creativity. Stephen Mayer, a brilliant technical mind who was instrumental in building the systems and technology that powered Atari's success. As co-founder of Atari's Grass Valley R&D Center, Mayer helped expand the company's reach into home gaming consoles and personal computers, including the legendary Atari 2600. Together, these three visionaries turned Atari into a cultural phenomenon, pioneering an industry that continues to reach billions of people. Tonight, we celebrate their remarkable accomplishments and lasting legacy in a world of gaming. Drawing from CHM's video history program, let's hear more from Al, Nolan, and Stephen in their own words.
So we put that machine in Andy Capp's Tavern, and after about a week or two in Andy Capp's, I got a call that the machine stopped working. And I went into Andy Capp's to fix it, and I opened up the coin box, and the thing was just filled with quarters, and they gushed out. It was the first inkling that we might have a hit on our hands.
There are entrepreneurs made or born, and I think the answer might be yes. From Amkex, I'd learned how to create digital video images a little bit. And I just got thinking, you know, maybe I can do this. I changed the name in June '72 when we tried to incorporate. Atari was my third choice, and it was a good choice. And so we decided to hire another engineer, Allan Alcorn.
And he described a very simple game with one spot, score digits and a net, and perhaps some sound. And so I got to work on it. At the end of the 3 months, here was this prototype, and over the weekend, Ted Dabney built a cabinet in his home, and we put the prototype electronics in that cabinet. We bought a TV set that I used as a monitor, and put it in Andy Capp's Tavern, and it was a big hit.
The challenge with the 2600 was we wanted a game console that was a von Neumann architecture so that we could change the software and change the game.
The initial concept was not with interchangeable cartridges. That only happened a couple of weeks into the project where we said, okay, let's put the cartridge connector on the outside. That Ron and I quickly came back, got one of the chips, and over 6 weeks we built the prototype of the VCS, and we showed it to Al and Nolan.
And 6 months later, we introduced the Atari VCS at the '77 Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago. It was almost palatable how we had taken over the show and created such a hit. Atari was quite a magical place to work back in those days. People would come into the office and want to work for me just because it was a great place to work, and it was exciting. And it was actually making fun things was a unique experience.
The OG, the original guy, is always a special place. Nobody can take that away. And even though it was sort of abused for a while, I don't think it's lost much of its cachet.
If you take the print industry, the film industry, and the music industry, and combine all those three industries and then double that, that's the size of the video game industry. So we were privileged to help create a new form of storytelling.
And now to present these members of the Atari team with the 2024 Fellow Award is David Crane. David is the visionary co-founder of Activision and creator of the iconic game Pitfall. Before Activision, David was a key programmer at Atari, where he helped shape the early days of video game. Please welcome David Crane.
Well, I've been asked to present this award to these three deserving gentlemen. I started my career in video games back in the Wild West days on the coattails of these recipients. For those who don't know me, I've been designing and making video games, mostly on the software side, for more than 40 years. I'm still doing it today. And we all know that computers have changed all of our lives in many ways and changed many industries. But to most people, it was all about how computers affected companies that relied on number crunching and accounting and that sort of thing. But I had an epiphany when I was a wee lad that man used his latest technology to amuse himself. Electronic toys, radio, television, you name it, it was done to have fun. So electronics and the computers that followed opened up a whole new field of entertainment. And Allan, Nolan, and Stephen took that idea to heart and brought electronic and computer entertainment to the masses at a time when I was still taking apart TV sets and learning what made them tick. These three did pioneering work in many fields of electronic and computing technologies, from early attempts at a video phone, street mapping, robotics, digital video effects. But I crossed paths with each at Atari, where they helped to create today's multi-billion-dollar video game industry. So you'll have to pardon me if I speak to that one aspect of their careers. Let's start with Allan Alcorn. I consider Al to be the engineer's engineer. Al engineered Atari's best-known game, Pong. So it's hard to imagine what Atari might have been like without Pong, the prototype of which was, as you saw, reported broken because it was so stuffed full of quarters it couldn't take anymore. So it might be a stretch to say that Atari's dominance in video game technology would not have happened without him, but without a doubt, his engineering expertise pervaded the company's products for years. My favorite story that Al likes to tell, and Al, I apologize if you were going to tell this yourself, was about a time when he was walking through his living room and his wife discovered the kids playing games rather than doing their homework. She announced, "That's it, video games are banned from this house." Apparently, Al told her, "Wait a minute, while I support you setting guidelines and limits, video games won't be banned from this house. Video games paid for this house." And after Atari, Al joined Apple as a fellow, further cementing his legacy as a pioneer in early computing technology. Now we go to Stephen Mayer. Steve was a principal at Cyan Engineering. It was an engineering think tank and ultimately became an Atari subsidiary that came up with the technology behind many of Atari's arcade and home games. Atari's earliest home games were all based on custom silicon. So they would have a dedicated chip designed to play one game, and it goes in a box and went in your home. And I have it on good authority that Steve provided the impetus to combine early microprocessors with a general purpose display circuit and chip, and the Atari 2600 was born. So the 2600 dominated the video game market for over 10 years, and that dominance can be traced directly back to that fusion of software and hardware, which we didn't have before that. So Steve, let me thank you personally for your involvement in my favorite console for making games, the 2600. Next, we have Nolan Bushnell. Nolan and Atari's early contributors are widely acknowledged as pioneers in bringing electronic and computing entertainment to the world, first into arcades and public houses and then into our homes. I crossed paths with Nolan in the late 1970s And from my first meeting, I recognized that he embodied that philosophy I referred to earlier, that technology could and should be fun. So Nolan in business, there are many reasons in business to make product decisions, like making someone else's innovation cheaper or profitable or whatever. And that was not Nolan's way. Nolan funded projects for one reason, and that was because he found them neat. I'm serious, neat. That was his term, and we heard it a lot. Now, fortunately, he represented his target market, and millions of people also found those ideas to be neat. So it worked out really well. Many of the projects he got behind were far ahead of their time, from a navigation system in 1985. That's a decade before GPS satellites were available for consumer use. Home robots, before the technology had been developed to make them work. But many neat ideas, such as those pioneered by Allan, Nolan, and Stephen at Atari, came at a time when the need and technologies converged. And these neat ideas changed the world of technology-based entertainment forever. So Allan Alcorn, Nolan Bushnell, and Stephen Mayer, on behalf of the Computer History Museum, it is my distinct honor to present to you the 2024 Fellow Award for your pioneering role in the development of the video game and personal computing industries.
Thank you so much for this incredible honor. I'm truly humbled to be recognized as a fellow by the Computer History Museum, an institution that embodies the spirit of innovation and exploration that has driven our field forward. First, I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the museum's board of directors, staff, and all the visionary minds who've contributed to preserving and celebrating the rich tapestry of our industry's history. Your dedication to educating and inspiring future generations is nothing short of remarkable. This award is not just a recognition of individual achievement, but a celebration of collaboration and community. I've been fortunate to work alongside so many brilliant engineers, researchers, and thinkers who have challenged the status quo and pushed the boundaries of what's possible. To my colleagues and mentors, thank you for your support, your insights, and your encouragement to get me to do things which I didn't believe I could do. Reflecting on my journey, I'm reminded of the countless hours spent designing, prototyping, debugging, and brainstorming. There were moments of triumph, of course, but also moments of failure. Each one a stepping stone that shaped my path. In our field, we learn that every setback can lead to a breakthrough, and every challenge is an opportunity for innovation. As I stand here, I'm also reminded of the future we are building. Technology is a powerful tool, and with it comes a tremendous responsibility. It is essential that we strive not only for our advancement, but for ethical progress. We must ensure that innovations serve humanity, that they bridge divides rather than widen them. At Atari, our motto was innovative leisure, and it drove us to create products that put technology in the hands of consumers, all in the service of fun. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the potential of our field. The next generation of computer scientists and engineers is brimming with talent and ideas. To those young minds out there, I encourage you to be bold, to think critically, and to embrace curiosity. The future is yours to shape, and I can't wait to see what you'll create. In closing, I'd like to dedicate this award to everyone who's ever believed in the power of technology to change lives. Let us continue to honor the pioneers of our past while forging a future that is inclusive, innovative, and inspiring. I'm reminded of the wisdom of the instructions on the original Pong. Avoid missing ball for high score. Thank you once again for this honor. I'm truly grateful and excited to be part of this community. Thank you.
You know, I love Al. and all the guys, I mean, I get credit for a lot of things these guys did. And I'm here to say, I deserve it. No. Sorry, see, I believe that maybe the most important thing is to have a laugh once in a while. And so providing communities with humor is part of the job. But on a more serious note, when I think about my life experiences, I kind of have 10 pieces of advice. And now I think about it, but it's way too many. But whether it's art or music, it's really important to pursue your goals. And a lot of projects that I do, I get involved with them just because I'm bored. You know, if I can amuse myself, I'm a happy man. Anyway, that sounds very, very shallow, but it's okay. What you love and dedicate yourself not only will bring you joy, but it actually gives you a high probability of maybe being constructive and building for the world. I was given to a passion for electronics in the 3rd grade. Mrs. Cook let me play with the magic science box, which allowed me to hook up the dry cells and wrap a piece of wire around a nail and turn on lights and do switches and things like that. Up till then, I wanted to be a fireman or a doctor. After that, I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I barely knew what that was. But soon, I became a ham radio operator. And, you know, I went home, set up a card table in the corner of my bedroom, and started to tinker. And I've never stopped. But anyway, develop skills. You never know what kind of skills you're going to need. And so more is better, always. Have a lot of different things. And, you know, not only will you make your things yourself more employable, but you'll have fun and you'll get confidence. And, you know, have all kinds of things and workshops available to you and mentorship programs. There's so much you can do right now. Just do them. I had a thing with my kids. You know, with your kids, you can bribe them and you can shame them. It's maybe not good parenting, but I guarantee you that none of my kids watch TV without feeling guilt. Yeah. And I offered every one of them $100 the minute that they could touch type 50 words a minute. As a result, every one of my kids could touch type 50 words a minute by the time they were in the 3rd grade. Bribery and shame works. Anyway.
Video games are guilt-free,
Yeah, right. Okay, for example, though, my summer job while I was going through college was to work in an amusement park, where I learned the economics of the coin-operated game business. And it allowed me to sort of have an MBA because I built strong relationships, which is an important part. And my boss there gave me an MBA because I had to learn how to run a business, and it was really good. And these relationships really help with a sense of belonging to things. Take care of your health. You can't do anything if you're dead. That sounds like a truism, but the whole idea is eat healthy diet, get regular exercise, get enough sleep, and listen to your wife. And it really hurts. But anyway, be resilient and tenacious. It turns out that video games teach you that. When you lose a video game, do you sulk in the corner? Do you want cookies and a safe space with Legos? No. You basically hit the reset button and do it again. That's tenacious. And so, actually, there have been some studies done this, and that kids who play video games are a lot more tenacious and not quite as fragile as the hothouse plants that don't. So, when somebody comes to you for a job and you ask them, do you play video games? And they say no, you show them the door. Anyway. Now, I'm kind of having fun with you here a little bit. But you got to give back. You know, one of the best ways to find meaning and purpose is to give back to your community. Because, you know, there's so many cool things, whether it be your church or your school or your political party, and that'll get you into trouble, but that's another story. But what you really want to do is think of something bigger than yourself. And a lot of the world is broken. What you really want to do is be a fix-em-up chappie. You know, Dr. Seuss had a whole book about being a fix-em-up chappie, and I've often read that to my kids. And, you know, I shouldn't digress for a minute, but Dr. Seuss did a thing called Fox and Socks. And I can recite that whole damn book. I don't think that's a good use of time. But anyway. So stay informed. Know what the world is going on. Don't get into a bubble. Don't get distracted. There's an awful lot of bullshit around. How can you tell the difference between real stuff and bullshit? It's hard. And I think that it's going to be harder for young people today. And so, is AI going to help that? I can only hope so. But I think it's a problem. But you got to investigate disparate positions. The next rule, be optimistic. If you're pessimistic, you're always right. Because if you don't do something, you never fail. Optimism is the driver of the future. Think you can do it, try to do it. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. And, you know, Steve and Al, when we get talking together, we said, why were we so cavalier? And it was because we all thought we were probably going to fail, but we thought maybe we could succeed. Lo and behold, we did. So, in the future, I'm working on gamified education. Can you play a game and learn everything that you needed to learn in the 9th grade? Mike, I propose that the answer is yes. We know that you remember 5% of what you hear, 10% of what you see, and 80% of what you do. In playing games, you do things. So I believe that it's possible to create a game that is so damn good that you create a lot of education just by playing the game and winning. Shaping the Future of Education is the book that Lee and I wrote, and it kind of is a blueprint. And, you know, I shouldn't be pitching anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. I suggest that you buy the book, several of them, and eat them for breakfast. But anyway, on the second part, watch AI. Perhaps it will change the world and be the most important tool since the bicycle. I mean, just stop to think about how good bicycles were versus walking somewhere. AI is a tool that can change everything, particularly when it doesn't hallucinate. But its sibling, robotics and self-driving cars, promise to eliminate 15 million jobs just in the United States. So, are you going to be part of that part of the economy which has been eliminated? Or are you going to be part of the future that's going to be elucidated? Every time there is change, Schopenhauer talks about creative destruction. Every change is a curse and a blessing, and you can decide which it is. So I use the tools, teach yourself, make it happen, and the world's going to be a better place. Thank you very much.
Once again, I'm following Nolan. He may have 10 points for success. I have one, follow Nolan. So I'm really honored here to receive this award from one of the great science and technology museums in the world. You pioneered not only preserving, presenting the artifacts and the stories of the computer industry. So thank you for that, and thank you most for this most prestigious award. I want to also acknowledge the work of one of our co-recipients, Elizabeth Feinler. We don't always give credit to the academics and government agencies that build the highways that we in the commercial sector can travel toll-free. So thank you so much. As for the work, of Jensen and NVIDIA, Atari may have pioneered graphic chips, but I feel like that beaver looking up at the Hoover Dam thinking, well, I didn't actually build this, but I had the original concept. And it's scaled nicely. And then there's Nolan. He gets most of the credit for Atari and deserves it and more. If we were a band, he would be our Mick Jagger. He put our band together. He was our front man and taught us the music we were to play. Like Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, he's in his 80s and he's still touring. Al was head of engineering and was our drummer. Nolan would say, pick up the tempo, and Al would always say, no, we can't do it. but he would find a way to make it work. As a band, we came together at a company called Ampex, and just a side word, Oracle came out of Ampex. Bob Miner and Larry Ellison followed us at Ampex. We learned our craft there, our shared interest, our music. In our case, our music was creating video games market and inventing the technology that made games wonderful and players could really enjoy. Our real game was being able to work with fellow engineers we respected, like my co-inventor here, Ron Milner, and Ted Kahn, that did the technology and education component of our company. As for our legacy, there were games that were entry level for people into the tech industry. There were those games that just allowed people to make their way through adolescence. And Atari left a legacy for a different kind of company, and you can see our DNA in companies like Apple and other companies that followed. And those people that are entering our field, I would offer what worked for us when we were young. Find the music you want to play, master your instrument, find fellow members of the band that you respect and who will share your joy, find your audience, and be willing to work for tips until it comes together. After all, Atari did start in finance by collecting quarters from the coin slot machines. And if you're really lucky, you too can be a member of a rock and roll band.
Let's give one more round of applause for Allan, Nolan, and Stephen. Legends. It is a privilege to introduce the next honoree, Elizabeth Jake Feinler, whose pioneering work has left an enduring impact on the development of the internet. Starting as an information scientist at the Stanford Research Institute in 1960, Jake joined the ARPANET Network Information Center in 1973, where her leadership shaped some of the internet's most critical innovations. Under Jake's guidance, the NIC developed the first online query systems, managed early network protocols, and crucially oversaw the transition to domain name systems that we use today. She played a key role in creating the original top-level domains like .com, .edu, .gov, and others that continue to structure the internet's architecture. Beyond her technical achievements, Jake has been a powerful advocate for women in technology. She's broken barriers in a field once dominated by men and serves as a role model for future generations of technologists, myself included. Her contributions have earned her numerous honors, including induction into the Internet Hall of Fame. As we honor Jake tonight, we celebrate not only her visionary contributions, but also her lasting influence on the digital world that connects us all. Drawing from CHM's video history program, let's hear more in Jake's own words.
We did literature searches and all kinds of data compilations for the scientists at SRI. In those days, there were no computers that did this. You did it by brute force in little 3x5 cards. So I was working on a very big data compilation, and the 3x5 cards were getting totally out of hand. And I thought there ought to be something better around here, like a computer to do this on. And so I wandered up into Doug Engelbart's group. They had just gotten this big contract to do the NIC, and I walked into this group with the hair out to here and the beards down to here and the Birkenstocks, and it's all sitting on the floor staring at television sets. Sometimes I would say, what am I getting myself into? And so he would come down to my office and sort of ask me how did this and that and the other thing work. And I would ask him how does this and that and the other thing work. And finally, I told him I was bored where I was and why didn't he hire me. He said, well, I don't have a job right now. And I said, okay. So he came down a little while later and said, I have a job now. And I said, what is it? And he said, we need a resource handbook. And I said, what's a resource handbook? And he said, I'm not sure, but we need one in 6 weeks. And what that was a compilation of all the sites that were on the network. And originally it was supposed to be a resource sharing network. So we wanted something that said who was at each site, who were the contacts, what kinds of things that they have to offer. Almost nothing was online, so we did a lot of sending out documents, I think something like 70 or 80,000 documents a year, because it was also our job to keep all the developers on the network informed of whatever was happening. Steve Crocker started out with something called the Requests for Comments, or RFCs they were called. The NIC distributed these in hard copy to start with, and then eventually they were all online. We were just kind of the prehistoric Google, you know, if you didn't know where else to go, you came to the NIC, and we tried to find out who or where or what was available for you. Suddenly the network was expanding like crazy, so the NIC kind of expanded along with it. We developed some of the big servers like Whois and Name Server and Biblio and SAM. Some of those were services on the net that people could use. And as the NIC grew, it was too big to go on the machines for the space they had allowed. And that's when they went into the domain naming. In the early 80s was when the TCP/IP became a reality. We were going to cut over to that. And that was another time that was very confusing. As I might say, all hell was breaking loose on the network because everybody had to convert to these protocols. We were coordinating and getting documents out, and RFCs were coming right and left, and that was a pretty hectic time. So I think some of the things we have are probably the only one that has it, so that's nice that some of this has gotten preserved. My friends always told me I never saw a piece of paper I didn't like, so I'm glad I saved it for the museum and posterity.
All right, now to present Jake with the 2024 Fellow Award is Steve Crocker. Steve was a key player in the creation of the first ARPANET protocols and the creator of the Requests for Comments document series, as you just heard on the video. Like Jake, Steve both contributed to the structure and management of the early internet and laid the groundwork for its evolution. Please welcome Steve Crocker.
I didn't authorize that picture. I'm glad my wife isn't here. Wikipedia tells us that Jake's story is a common tale of distraction and unfulfilled dreams. However, not all such tales are sad. Elizabeth Jake Feinler was aiming for a PhD in biochemistry at Purdue University. She took what was intended to be just a short break to earn some money at Chemical Abstracts in Columbus, Ohio. Her work was focused on indexing chemical compounds. In 1960, but this distraction became permanent. Later, in 1960, she joined SRI's research division, as you've heard, to help develop the Handbook of Psychopharmacology and the Clinical Process Economics Handbook. A dozen years later, Doug Engelbart recruited her to join his Augmentation Research Center. Her first task was to write a resource handbook for the first demonstration of the ARPANET at the International Computer Communication Conference. By 1974, she was the principal investigator to help plan and run the Network Information Center for the ARPANET. What Wikipedia does not say is that Jake embodied a unique and very powerful combination of three attributes. She had, of course, the orientation and skill of a professional information scientist. And as is evident from her long history of accomplishments, she had tremendous zeal and energy, but less well documented, but enormously important, she embodied a deep set of humanitarian values. In an era where there were few women and minorities in technical fields, Jake was not only uncommon herself, but she mentored and included women and minorities in her group. Engelbart's project was visionary and groundbreaking. The mouse was invented. They pioneered the use of structured text and links, perhaps the most pervasive technology that we use today. It was thus natural that this project would be included in the original set of 4 ARPANET sites. Now, the ARPANET was a peculiar project. The lower part of the ARPANET, the lines and the routers, what we call the subnet now, was carefully designed and built. The upper part, what would these computers actually say to each other, was left to the users to figure out. Users in those days were primarily students and comparable staff. The heads of the various projects at these sites were too busy to pay attention to this sort of extra project that was inserted over them. Charlie Klein, John Postel, Vint Cerf, and I were at UCLA as examples of these students and staff members. Jeff Rulifson and others, Chuck Irby, Bill Duvall, and others at SRI were our counterparts. University of California, Santa Barbara, and Utah had similar contributors. Equally unspecified was any sort of organization of contact information, reference notes, etc. But Jake was there. Over the next several years, Jake was at the center of organizing contact information, reference material, distribution of those materials across the net, and generally keeping up. Her compilation of contact information became the core of what internet users all around the world would refer to as "who is." More than 50 years later, Jake's seminal work continues to be at the core of the internet infrastructure. New issues involving the accuracy of the contact data and proper control and use of this data have emerged as one of the current challenges on the internet. Recently, I created a project to deal with these issues, and it seemed natural to name it Project Jake. She's now returned the favor by asking me to introduce her tonight, and I am honored to do so. Elizabeth Jake Feinler, on behalf of the Computer History Museum, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to present to you the 2024 Fellow Award for Inspiring and Creative Leadership of Network Information Centers that helped shape everybody's internet today. Thank you.
I want to thank the Computer History Museum for this honor. I go way back as a CHM volunteer to the time when only Kirsten, Dag, and Chris were staff, and Betsy Toole was wandering around muttering, "What has John got me into this time?" Today, the museum is the premier world computer museum, so it is truly an honor to be named a fellow of such a prestigious organization. For those of you that don't know me, I was the principal investigator for 17 years for the ARPANET and then the Defense Data Network Information Center, or NIC as it was usually called. The project ran for 20 years and was staffed by some very bright, dedicated people over those years, so I can only accept this honor on their behalf. The NIC was a work in progress. It began as a paper-driven service and evolved into an online service over the years. We ran a telephone hotline, but the early computers were crowded and slow, so it wasn't easy to answer questions by keeping the answers online. My friends kidded me and said that I never saw a piece of paper I didn't like, which resulted in me having 400 boxes of internet archives that I contributed to the museum, along with a detailed funding aid after I retired. So if you're interested in internet history, the museum's the right place to go. Steve Crocker was determined to keep internet research free of government red tape from the outset, and he set up a set of research notes called requests for comments. These notes were truly as advertised. If one had an idea or criticism of the internet, they could send an RFC and it would be considered. The NIC distributed the RFCs to the internet sites. Steve also asked each internet site to name a technical liaison as a contact. The NIC coordinated this group, and thus we were able to keep sites informed. One of the duties that Steve assigned to the NIC was maintenance and distribution of the host table. Thanks a lot, Steve. This began as a file needed to be installed in each internet computer. The internet was growing rapidly, so the file was a bear to keep up. Over time, the file evolved into the Whois server, and finally the file became much too large and unwieldy, and the network switched to the tree-structured domain naming system. The NIC was bombarded with individuals and companies wanting top-level domains. We decided that the top-level domains should be generic and represent the types of groups on the networks, thus .mil, .gov, .edu, .org, and .com. It's interesting to note that .com was an afterthought that Ken Herenstein added just to round out the concept, because the only commercial entities on the network then were government contractors, and they could have gone under .gov. But who knew? As an information scientist, my dream was to bring the information of the world to the fingertips of the user. Today, the internet has done just that. It has evolved into the information highway used by all of us. We can answer questions, talk to friends and family across the world, access ideas of the most prestigious minds, buy anything anywhere, access the latest health information, or state our own position, and on and on. That's the good news. The bad news is that the internet is currently like the Wild West. Anything goes, not all of it good. We are seeing misinformation, conspiracies, scams, get-rich-quick schemes, pornography, excessive advertising, spying on users, and AI fraud, and much more. You would not hold a picnic in the middle of the transportation highway. Sensible rules have evolved to make this system work. We need sensible rules for the internet. Open, fair, reliable, and universal protocols and rules that make the internet work better for everyone, especially our children and users to come. My generation built the internet. My challenge to the next generation is manage it. It won't be easy, and it will require a different skill set, but I'm sure the next generation will be up to the challenge. The world is counting on you. Again, thank you for this prestigious honor.
We have to do it. One more round of applause for Jake, please. All right, now it is my honor to introduce our final honoree of the evening, Jensen Huang, the visionary founder, president, and CEO of NVIDIA, whose groundbreaking work has reshaped the world of computing. Born in Taiwan, Jensen moved to the US at age 9 and later earned degrees in electrical engineering from Oregon State and Stanford universities. In 1993, Jensen co-founded NVIDIA with the goal of advancing 3D graphics technology. The company's game-changing moment came in 1999 with the launch of the GeForce series, the world's first graphics processing unit, GPUs, which revolutionized 3D graphics by combining transform, lighting, and rendering into a single chip. Under Jensen's leadership, NVIDIA didn't just dominate gaming, it pioneered a new era of computing. In 2006, the company introduced CUDA, a parallel computing platform and API that enabled NVIDIA's GPUs to be used for technical and scientific computing, transforming multiple industries. NVIDIA's GPU technology has played a pivotal role in several AI breakthroughs, including the pivotal 2012 AlexNet neural network experiment, which was one of the first neural networks to use NVIDIA's GPUs to handle the vast computational requirements involved in deep learning. Today, NVIDIA powers AI applications in fields ranging from autonomous vehicles to supercomputing to healthcare. Jensen's visionary leadership has positioned NVIDIA as a global leader in AI and computing, making it one of the most influential technology companies in the world. Drawing from CHM's video history program, let's hear more in Jensen's own words.
We're all of the video game generation. 3D graphics for video games is naturally very computing intensive. How do we create a video game market on top of 3D graphics for the PC industry? 3 techniques really distinguished our graphics architecture. Unfortunately, those 3 techniques were very hard for developers. If you don't create an architecture that's easy for developers, rich enough for developers to develop their ideas, it is simply not going to be adopted, no matter how cost-effective it is. I knew we were going down the wrong path. When we pivoted, we did it in just about 9 months because we had no time left. We changed how we designed chips. We changed how we did almost everything. Instead of saying, this is the chip we have to build, how long is it going to take? We started with, this is how much time we have, and how do we build such a thing? We started a way of designing chips and complicated systems and co-design between software and chips and architecture that the world never seen before. So that first diving catch, that first life-threatening experience for our company formed NVIDIA today. When we got into GPUs and we made it possible for us to render images using software, the journey was really about becoming more and more expressive to be able to represent the world of physics and the virtual world better. Eventually, we convinced the Oak Ridge National Laboratory to use NVIDIA GPUs for their next generation supercomputer, which then exposed us to all kinds of fields of science, from molecular dynamics to quantum chemistry, from biology to material sciences to climate sciences. The vast majority of the computation is now done on GPUs. And so the computing model has changed. The software development methodology and the software development tools has completely changed. AI is really that method. It's just about every single industry is in the process of being transformed as a result of AI. AI is fundamental for a lot of different reasons. Unquestionably, one of the most significant computing transitions we've ever seen. I focus my energy on 2 areas, the areas that create the future and the areas that solve problems for the company in the near term, so that we're executing our strategy. But at all time, I'm grounded with the realization that the company needs to have a vision where it's going, and the company needs to have strategies to execute towards that vision. People give us a lot of credit for the democratization, if you will, of AI computing on our platform, and give us a lot of credit for cultivating the deep learning ecosystem around the world, helping the researchers ultimately connect the technology to real applications in the marketplace.
actually have one more surprise. One of our former fellows and one of Jensen's mentors, Morris Chang, was unable to join us in person tonight, but he wished to send us these congratulations.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jensen. Congratulations, Jensen, on being a fellow of the Computer History Museum. I still remember the first time I talked to you on the phone. It was 1997. I had received a letter from you asking TSMC to be your foundry. So when I called you in your office, you picked up the phone, and I heard a lot of background noise. Apparently, you have been discussing something with your people. But when you heard that the phone call was from me, you shouted to your people, "Quiet, Morris Chang is calling." We then made an appointment to meet, and I was immediately impressed by your ability to explain your new product clearly, and even more importantly, your supreme confidence that if TSMC makes your new product well, NVIDIA's financial difficulties would be over, and TSMC would gain a new major customer. Even though at that time the demand on us exceeded our capacity, I was impressed enough to give your proposition a try. The result was the NVIDIA GPU in 1999, and your predictions came true. It was a financial success for NVIDIA, and TSMC gained a new major customer. I also remember that you set your sights on high-performance scientific computing back in the early 2000s, when machine learning and AI computing were in their infancy. In 2016, you leveraged TSMC's 16-nanometer process and CoWoS technologies to create Pascal GP100, the groundbreaking data center GPU. Based on the GP100, you developed the first AI-focused supercomputer, which you hand-delivered to OpenAI for their large language model development. This work led to the creation of ChatGPT, introduced by OpenAI, which has popularized AI applications. You have done a lot more since then, and all this is now history. It is more than fitting that you are now a fellow of the Computer History Museum. You are a maker of computer history yourself.
And now to present Jensen, the 2024 Fellow Award is Mark Stevens. Mark is a renowned venture capitalist and partner at S-Cubed Capital. He's a visionary investor in tech. Mark was an early backer of the groundbreaking companies like NVIDIA, where he also serves on the board of directors. Please welcome Mark Stevens.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're here, obviously, tonight to honor Jensen Huang. Jensen and I have known each other for 31 years. And actually, a fact about us, we share the same birthday of February 17th. So Jensen is exactly 3 years younger than I am. At the time that we met, I was a newly minted partner at Sequoia Capital. And Wilf Corrigan, who many of you might know, who was the founder of LSI Logic, which was a company that Sequoia had financed back in the early 80s, he had called us and he recommended that we meet with Jensen and his two co-founders, Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem. Needless to say, we were very impressed with them and their vision. So subsequently, NVIDIA raised its initial round of capital of only $2 million. $1 million from Sequoia and $1 million from our co-investor, Sutter Hill Ventures. So the story of NVIDIA can really be described in 3 distinct phases, and you've heard a little bit about that from the earlier speakers. But in the initial phase of the 1990s, Jensen and the team were really focused on delivering high-quality 3D graphics to the Windows PC platform. Heretofore, that level of graphics could only be achieved on relatively expensive workstations from companies like Silicon Graphics, who used to be in this building, by the way, and Sun Microsystems. The initial target market was gamers who desired to run their games on an open architecture and not rely on traditional proprietary consoles. The second phase of the company really began in 1999 when NVIDIA introduced its initial graphics processing unit that today we all know are called GPUs. The second phase of the company greatly expanded the gaming market by providing much higher frame rates, much smoother gameplay, and much more lifelike graphics. And of course, the third phase of the company really began at the beginning of the last decade in 2010. The parallel processing architecture of GPUs in the invention of a revolutionary programming model called CUDA was attracting researchers in academia and industry who recognized the opportunity to accelerate computationally demanding applications like physical and chemical simulations and deep learning. Today, the world recognizes GPUs for powering the AI industrial revolution. NVIDIA has accelerated software and compute by 1 million times factor in the past decade, which has far surpassed Moore's Law. So what does the future hold? The company's GPU-based compute platforms will not only accelerate today's data centers, but it will drive a new multi-trillion-dollar opportunity called AI factories. Eventually, every organization in every industry in every country will operate these factories as the digital twin of workforces, products, and manufacturing plants. But all this progress would not have been possible without the masterful leadership of Jensen. His technical prowess, his forward visioning of imagining multi-billion-dollar markets where there was only a $0 billion market, his ability to recruit and retain the best talent in the industry, and his dedication to build a unique and enduring corporate culture is extremely unique, not just in the technology world, but anywhere in the world. Several months ago, I was invited to do a fireside chat at Sequoia's office to provide some of the younger members of Sequoia's team, many of whom were not even born when NVIDIA was founded, a perspective on NVIDIA. And at the end of the session, I was asked what one word would describe Jensen. And I said, fearless. Fearless to vigorously compete, fearless to demand excellence, and fearless to always do the right thing. I will always treasure our long path together, Jensen. Jensen Huang, on behalf of the Computer History Museum, it is my distinct honor to present you the 2024 Fellow Award for Visionary Leadership in the advancement of devices and systems for computer graphics, accelerated computing, and artificial intelligence.
This is a warp core. For anyone who's never seen one, you use this to travel at the speed of light, or if anything happens, you jettison the warp core as fast as you can. I'm not supposed to be here. All of you know that I still work for a living. I work today. I was in distress today. Mark said earlier that he's known us in 3 phases. I've only known 1 phase. Trying not to go out of business. And I was in that phase today. I'm so incredibly honored. Alcorn, Bushnell, Mayor, you know that you were my first computer. And the Atari VCS was my first computer. I came to the United States. I was fairly young, and I was 9 years old. My parents took really good care of us, but we didn't have much to live off of. They came to the United States, and it turns out our favorite store was the Salvation Army. And there it was, the Atari VCS. And we brought it home, and that was our first computer. When NVIDIA first started, I would tell you that to this day, the first brilliant strategy, there weren't many brilliant strategies, but the first brilliant one, was to recognize that video game would be a sustainable market. At the time, 3D graphics and 3D video games was precisely a $0 billion market, and it stayed a $0 billion market for about almost 7 years. But the concept was that 3D graphics was going to be so insanely complex and video games was going to be enjoyed by everybody, the combination of a large market with insanely hard technology could create one of the world's most influential technology companies. That was the idea. The product of these 2 ideas, high volume and high technology. And video games, 3D graphics was never going to be good enough because we always want virtual worlds to be more believable, and the ability to produce a sustainably long-term vision of an incredible virtual world was going to be incredibly hard to do. And that was it. That was the initial idea that got the company going. Video games has been very, very true to our company from the very beginning, and it was really great that that Steve said that avoid missing the ball. In our words at the time, the whole goal of winning was so that we can play a game. And for a lot of us that grew up in the video game industry, that is the purpose of winning. The purpose of winning is in itself nothing. It's just the goal of being able to play again and to play the next level. And so I'm delighted that I was able to share this day with giants of the video game industry. It is an incredible honor. I was thinking earlier whether I would write the speech or grip it and rip it. And the problem with writing a speech for me is that it'll come across soulless. And so I decided to grip it and rip it. But unfortunately, I did exactly the middle right before I got here. As I was reflecting on the importance of today, computers, it is one of the most important instruments of humanity. History, I never thought that it would be part of computer history. I never thought I would be part of history. I take my work very seriously, as all of my colleagues in NVIDIA would tell you, but I don't take myself seriously. And that's kind of the reason why I said, what am I doing here? I'm nobody. And in a lot of ways, it makes no sense to me to be part of history. And surely makes no sense that I'm in a museum. It really is too soon. We started the company with the idea that we would reinvent the personal computer. The personal computer in 1993 was still basically nowhere. Windows 95, which is probably the single most important computer product, mainstream computer product ever created, hadn't obviously been introduced. Our idea was that we would reimagine, reinvent the personal computer when it does come, and give it the capabilities that we otherwise saw in supercomputers, and provide mainstream computer graphics that were so good that you could use it for things like video games and all of the other things that we now take for granted. We imagined reinventing the computer. In 1999, as Mark was saying earlier, we introduced the GPU. The GPU, by the way, is the first other processor in a computer that's programmable by software. And it never happened before. And that introduction of the GPU, a programmable chip, aside from the microprocessor, was controversial, it was dangerous, but we felt that someday there would be another type of computing device or another way of doing computing. We imagined accelerated computing that could revolutionize the computer. In 2006, we introduced CUDA, which made the graphics processor programmable into something a lot more general purpose. CUDA was our vision for turning NVIDIA into a computing platform company. In order to be a computing platform company, there is simply one law: installed base. There's only one type of successful computing platform, something with a large enough installed base. But installed base is impossible to achieve without applications, and applications are impossible to achieve without installed base. This chicken and egg problem confronted us since the very beginning. But we believed in what we were trying to do, and probably the second great idea that the company came up with was not CUDA. CUDA is technology. The second great idea was suffering. That we would dedicate ourselves to the end to make CUDA successful and to expand its installed base until an application found it. And so we put CUDA into every single GPU of ours. It cost our company about 20% of our gross margins. NVIDIA, you know what NVIDIA's market value is today, but taking CUDA to market drove our market cap, and as Mark Stevens will remember, down to about $1.5 billion. It was so low that an investor in Japan reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to buy the company with my own. He could just lend me some pocket change, and I would buy the company, and then I would be the only shareholder. I declined the opportunity. I regret that, but I declined the opportunity. That was Masa-san, and he told the story just last week. In 2012, CUDA found the killer app. We kept CUDA on all of our GPUs until one day, some students in the University of Toronto, some students in New York University, and some students at Stanford University discovered CUDA in order to try to attempt to win AlexNet. And that day was a big day for us because all of a sudden we discovered this new algorithm. But we discovered this new algorithm like everybody else discovered a new algorithm. Everybody else saw AlexNet. I saw AlexNet. The paper came out, AlexNet. It was an incredible achievement in computer vision. But the third great decision the company made was recognizing that AlexNet wasn't just an extraordinary computer vision breakthrough, that it was a fundamentally new way of doing software. From human coding, it was machine learning. My observation was, what did Alex know about computer vision? It turned out he didn't know very much about computer vision, but he was able to develop an AI that did computer vision better than any algorithm any human ever wrote. And that observation led us to think, what would happen if machine learning or deep learning were to continue to expand and to apply to all kinds of new applications. And we decided that day, and over the course of about several years, some close to 6 years or so, to completely reinvent everything in our company so that we re-engineered every single layer of the computing stack. Instead of software, human-coded software running on CPUs, we would create machine learning software, or otherwise coded as neural networks, that ran on GPUs. And in, I guess it was 2016, yeah, that's right, 2016, we introduced a brand new computer the world's never seen before. It looked different, it weighed different, it was much heavier than any computer in the past, and we called it the DGX-1. And on the day that I announced it, NVIDIA was the only customer. No one asked to buy it, nobody knew anything about it, and I built it for our own software development team. And fortunately, I had a friend on stage at that announcement, and his name was Elon Musk. And Elon said, "I need one of those." And I was thinking, my first thought was, I might be able to sell one. And then he then told me that he had started this company called OpenAI, but it is a not-for-profit company. And so all of the hopes of revenues left, and I delivered anyhow the world's second DGX-1 to OpenAI, and the rest of it is history. Several years later, they introduced ChatGPT, and it sparked the idea of artificial intelligence. And we've completely changed how computing is done, from coding to machine learning, from CPUs to GPUs, from software to artificial intelligence. Now, we all know that artificial intelligence is increasing at an extraordinary rate. We all know that the ability to automate intelligence, a capability we felt was solely the capability of humans. The unique capability of humans is now produced by computers. All of that we're confronting, and an extraordinary thing that for the very first time in history we can imagine accelerating the discovery of solutions for some of the most daunting challenges. Climate change, life-saving drugs, dealing with workforce reduction, solving inflation. For the very first time in history, we have technology that we can do that with. But at the industrial level, it is far more profound. What is extraordinary is just as in 1995, Microsoft invented something very new. If you reflect on it, you realize. And you might have heard Bill talk about Microsoft in the early days, that Microsoft wasn't just an operating system company, it was a software manufacturing company, that they were going to manufacture software at scale, that they were going to produce software of all kinds, that we would have for the very first time to produce something, an industry that produced something that is invisible, that you can copy easily, and that it would be trillions of dollars in scale. Well, for the very first time, we are now manufacturing this invisible thing called intelligence. We're manufacturing it right now as we speak. We have factories all over the world. They're running 24/7. They're producing this invisible thing called tokens. These tokens are constituted into intelligence of different kinds. We can generate intelligence as 300 years ago we could generate electricity. We are now generating intelligence in scale. The size of this industry, the technology industry, the computer industry that we're all part of, made this possible. the manufacturing of intelligence finally. And it is an extraordinary time. We're going to have all kinds of things. You know, I use AI every single day. I use it as an AI tutor. Of course, we'll have AI doctors, AI software engineers, AI chip engineers. The next 10 years we're not going to want to miss. The next 10 years we're not going to want to miss. I've had the privilege of the computer industry being my life's work. And I've had the privilege of standing on the shoulders of the amazing people that were honored before me. Our heroes. In fact, NVIDIA's latest generation processor is called Grace Hopper. 2 processors. Yep. Two processors, one called Grace and the other one called Hopper. NVIDIA wouldn't be possible if not for Mead and Conway. In fact, there are many people I see in the audience. Our industries literally would not be possible without Mead and Conway. And of course, Moore's Law. This idea that we can drive technology at the rate that we have. And of course, today, the compounded benefits of semiconductor physics and processor design and artificial intelligence is making it possible for us to move at hyper Moore's Law. There's so much. And of course, the surprise video from Morris Chang, somebody that I've worked with for a very, very long time and admired for a very long time. I interviewed him here for his fellow award. And so I look forward to the next decade. I want to thank all of you for this incredible honor. And as Jake said, she built it, and it's our job to manage it. Now we have a new fabric, a new layer on top of the internet. And this new layer on top of the internet is called intelligence. And it's our job to build it and manage it. And then there's one thing I wanted to say. There's so much wisdom that Steve passed. I was jotting it down. And what did hang on a second. What did Nolan say? Can't do anything if you're dead? You know, everybody's got philosophies. I got some of my own. And mine is you have to run, not walk. You have to run for food, or you're probably food. And so I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for this incredible award.
Well, this has been such an amazing night. We certainly have some words to live by in terms of things that we need to get done before the inevitable happens. So let's make sure that we get that done. Allan, Nolan, Steve, Jake, Jensen, thank you for your lifetime of work and impact on computing. It's changed the world in significant ways and enduring ways and in positive ways. And so let's give a final big round of applause to our 2024 Fellows.
Well, ladies and gentlemen and people of all kinds, we're all alive and we're here. So let me first and foremost thank the staff and the production organization that put this together. Very, very well done. There's a dozen or more trustees here tonight. I want to thank the trustees, all the volunteers and staff, so please. This is an exceptional time. I want to thank Aaron for hosting the event tonight. Thank you very much. And I'll spend a few minutes in closing here for a couple of reasons that I'll just explain in a minute. And foremost, though, I want to salute the 2024 fellows and recognize them as the legends and, in some cases, unsung heroes who inspire us all to shape a better future. Jensen said it well. I think that all of us, any of us that have had anything to do with this industry, are standing on the shoulders of giants, people that have done things before, that allow us to stand up and make contributions. And it doesn't matter how old you are to be a fellow. Jensen, you'll bring a lot more to life, both in digital and in real life over time, I'm sure. I want to thank everyone for being with us to hear the stories of these innovators. We look forward to working with all of you to help create a better future. Many of you have a lot to do with the industry. And I would say that tonight is a special night for me as well. Many of you know this will be my last Fellow Award ceremony as the CEO of the museum. I've been here for nearly 7 years, and it's time to pass that on. The trustees are working, I wouldn't say around the clock, but they're working at finding someone to replace me, and I'll stay through a comfortable and appropriate transition and stay involved as appropriate given the new leadership's interest in that. But before I close, I wanted to mention two things. This calendar year marked the passing of Chester Gordon Bell. Many of you know Gordon, or certainly if you know the industry, you know of Gordon. And it is with Gordon and his wife Gwen that the beginning of this museum was instantiated in the 1980s, late 1970s, back in Boston. And so many of you were here, a number of you were here in August when we celebrated Gordon's life. He was part of bringing the first computing architecture to the world when he was at Digital Equipment Corporation. And he was really the inspiration for then Len Shustak, who's here tonight, to instantiate this institution that absorbed the collection that Gordon and Gwen had started. And through the last 20 plus years, this institution has really made an incredible collection and fundamental impact that I'll talk about in just a second. But if you would join me for just a minute of silence on behalf of Gordon's passing, I'd appreciate it. I got to work with Gordon when I was at Microsoft, which is the last industry job that I had for 17 years. And I worked very closely with him. He was in the research organization, and he brought a lot of crazy ideas to the table. But none as important, I think, as this, which is he had a vision for instantiating the context of the history of computing and to bring it forward in an important way to help people recognize more about life as we know it. And so when I came to the museum approximately 7 years ago, I wrote a very brief piece that I shared with the trustees and the staff. And I wanted to read some of that, about 90+% of it to you right now. And it begins by me saying, at CHM, and let me describe CHM for a minute. You could say Computer History Museum, CHM, or many of you heard me say this, you could say Computing Humanity and Meaning. And the institution could focus its attention on answering the question of what it means to be human in a world that doesn't exist without computing. Because we've turned out the power, we're all gone. There will be some people who will live, and they will recreate a new world. But for all of us, we're gone. So life doesn't exist without computing. So as I said, at CHM, we exist for and to speak to people. For most of human history, people were the computers. And then people invented computers. And today, the human condition, life as we know it, is completely dependent upon computers. And from the circadian clock and all living things to the billions of instructions carried over tens of kilometers of wired pathways per second, time to near perfection in a microprocessor the size of your thumbnail, the exponential explosion of computing power is affecting the human condition every passing moment. Today's issues are driven by the rise of these new machines that augment the human condition. At CHM, we bring forward history to reflect upon the future that these new machines present. We do this because we all live inside this transformation. And our role at the museum is to speak to you, to people, to stimulate learning and debate about the human condition. But what are the issues? What do these new machines look like? How are they intertwined? The issues range from the quantified self in precision medicine to global environmental concerns, from the personal to the political structures that impact our security and privacy. From the trust granted by financial and other institutions to the new forms of work that are inevitable given the rise of robots of all kinds. The issues we decode at CHM are about life as we know it and as it will become. So that was 7 years ago when I came here. The institution has made progress. We're on a long journey. For those who can and are capable and have capacity, we need your help. We want an important institution. Over the past 7 years, we've evolved and grown, and we'll continue to do so under the new leadership because that's what a great institution like this one will do. But no matter what changes, I'm confident that CHM in its exhibits, programs, digital content, and more will always focus on what matters most, people and our shared humanity. So thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the legacy of our 2024 fellows and their impact on humanity. And now I hope you will all join us downstairs for dessert and for a preview of our newest exhibit, I'll say it right this time, Chatbots Decoded, Exploring AI, which opens to the public on Wednesday. So again, hats off to the fellows, and thank you all for coming. Good night. Great.